They mocked the Earthling as bait, but he made the kill count speak. The command deck of Battle Station Nexus pulsed with alien technology from 17 worlds coordinating the galactic war across dimensions of strategy that human minds could barely comprehend. The holographic display showed the tactical nightmare consuming 3 generations, the silence sectors. 7 dead worlds where sound had become a weapon, where fleets vanished into electromagnetic voids that devoured signals and reduced AI systems to static. Planet Silence 17 hung like a malignant tumor, its surface painted black by sensors detecting no movement, no energy signatures, no signs of Echo unit that disappeared 6 months ago. Captain Sharv's 4 eyes tracked the orbital patterns with mechanical precision. Beside him, Lieutenant Carew shifted her massive Gurnon frame, strategic implants cycling through probability matrices, painting failure in statistical certainty. "Status on the reconnaissance mission," Sharv commanded. "Echo unit remains unaccounted for," Carew responded. Drury's specialized tactical team, full enhancement packages, quantum communication arrays. Last transmission before complete signal loss. Echo unit represented the pinnacle of Galactic Special Forces, cybernetic beings with uploaded consciousnesses, enhanced bodies, surviving hard vacuum, minds, processing tactical data at superhuman speeds. If they had failed on Silent 17, conventional doctrine suggested the mission was impossible, perfect for cannon fodder. Deploy expendable reconnaissance asset. Carew continued with cold efficiency. Human recruitment facility has provided suitable candidates. The Galactic War had raged 43 years, consuming lives with mechanical indifference. Individual lives had become mathematical variables in equations spanning entire sectors, especially human lives. Select the most expendable candidate, Sharv ordered, without reviewing personnel files. Minimal equipment allocation. In the human barracks, 23-year-old Private Daniel Dusty Owens was about to prove that survival wasn't about advanced technology or enhanced intelligence. Sometimes it was about the stubborn refusal to die when death seemed inevitable. Sometimes it was about remembering that the weakest species had survived everything the universe could throw at them for millions of years. Not because they were strong, but because they were too stupid to know when they were supposed to give up. The transport bay of Battle Station Nexus existed in the liminal space between military efficiency and industrial necessity. Its vast corridors designed to move personnel and equipment with mechanical precision rather than comfort. Here, beings from across the galaxy prepared for missions that would take them to the edge of known space and sometimes beyond their various physiologies, requiring different atmospheric mixtures, gravitational fields, and environmental controls that turned the bay into a complex ecosystem of artificial habitats. Private Daniel Owens stood at the designated human assembly point, his regulation uniform marking him as part of the Coalition's most recent and most expendable addition to the galactic war effort. At 23, he possessed the kind of unremarkable appearance that military bureaucracies found perfect for dangerous assignments: average height brown hair that refused to stay properly groomed, and eyes that suggested he was thinking about something other than whatever orders he'd just been given. Around him, the transport bay hummed with activity that followed patterns he was still learning to recognize. Zalthori technicians moved with predatory grace, their 4 arms managing multiple tasks with fluid coordination. Gurnon soldiers checked weapon systems with methodical precision, their massive frames requiring specialized equipment that could withstand the gravitational fields of their homeworld. Arcturian strategists flickered between dimensions, their ethereal forms consulting tactical displays that existed in spectrums beyond human perception. And then there were the humans, a small cluster of beings who looked fundamentally out of place among the technological marvels and evolutionary achievements that surrounded them. No natural armor plating, no enhanced senses, no ability to process information at superhuman speeds. Just organic intelligence wrapped in skin that couldn't survive hard vacuum without artificial life support, relying on instincts that predated civilization and reflexes that had been honed by millions of years of surviving on a planet that seemed determined to kill everything living on it. Owen, the assignment coordinator, called out its mechanical voice, translating through speakers that had been calibrated for human hearing ranges. The being itself was a construct of the Coalition's administrative AI, its holographic form shifting through various species' preferred visual wavelengths. Reconnaissance assignment priority level expendable. Report to equipment distribution. Daniel moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, navigating between beings whose casual conversations could accidentally rupture human eardrums and whose routine movements could crush unenhanced bones. 15 months of military service had taught him the survival skills necessary for interspecies. Cooperation. Stay small, move carefully, and never assume that what seemed safe for other species would be survivable for humans. The Equipment Distribution Center occupied a section of the transport bay that had been designed for rapid deployment scenarios, its automated systems capable of outfitting soldiers for any conceivable combat environment within minutes. Advanced tactical suits that could adapt to hostile atmospheres, weapons systems that drew power directly from stellar radiation communication arrays that could maintain contact across galactic distances. The technology represented the accumulated military knowledge of dozens of civilizations. Daniel's allocation was considerably more modest. Basic biosensor package. The distribution AI announced its mechanical arms assembling equipment with efficient precision. Atmospheric analysis kit standard issue. Personal weapon plasma pistol, low-yield configuration. Communication device short-range transmitter, human-compatible interface. He watched as beings around him received equipment that seemed drawn from science fiction energy shields that could deflect particle beams, armor systems that incorporated their own medical facilities, weapons that could reconfigure themselves for different tactical scenarios. His own gear looked like it had been assembled from whatever happened to be available in the military surplus warehouse. Mission parameters. The AI continued projecting a holographic display that showed the dead world of Silent 17 rotating slowly in virtual space. Reconnaissance and data retrieval. Primary objective, locate missing tactical unit. Secondary objective, analyze environmental conditions that prevent standard communication protocols. Tertiary objective, survive long enough to transmit findings. The casual inclusion of survival as a tertiary objective carried the weight of statistical calculation rather than genuine concern. Daniel understood the mathematics involved in a war that consumed billions of lives across multiple sectors. Individual survival was less important than the data that individual could potentially provide. Transport departure in 20 minutes. The AI concluded. Recommend final equipment check and personal preparation protocols. As Daniel secured his equipment and ran through pre-mission diagnostics, he became aware of the attention his presence was drawing from other species. Not the focused attention of military professionals evaluating a colleague's capabilities, but rather the detached observation of beings watching something that was probably going to die. A group of Zalthori specialists paused in their own preparations to study him with their multifaceted eyes, their whispered comments requiring no translation to understand their meaning. Lieutenant Carew herself appeared near the equipment station, her massive Gurnon frame towering over the human section as she reviewed mission parameters on her tactical display. Reconnaissance asset appears adequate for expendable deployment, she commented to her aide, her words carrying across the bay with the clarity of someone who either didn't care if he heard or assumed he wouldn't understand the implications. But Daniel understood perfectly. He was being sent to Silent 17 not because anyone believed he could succeed where Echo Unit had failed, but because his death would provide data about the planet's hazards without risking valuable personnel. He was a probe disguised as a soldier, a sensor package that happened to be capable of independent thought. The transport shuttle that would carry him to his destination was a utilitarian vehicle designed for short-range reconnaissance missions, its hull scarred by previous encounters with hostile environments. As Daniel boarded and secured himself in the minimal passenger compartment, he caught his reflection in one of the reinforced viewports, a young human who looked exactly like what he was, someone the galaxy expected to disappear without a trace. Through the viewport battle station, Nexus fell away as the shuttle began its journey towards Silent 17. Behind him, Daniel knew beings with intellects that spanned multiple dimensions were already writing his mission report in the past tense, calculating the probability matrices that would determine what lessons could be learned from his inevitable failure. What none of them understood was that humans had been underestimated before, and sometimes being underestimated was the most powerful weapon of all. The journey to Silent 17 took 14 hours through hyperspace corridors carved by lost civilizations. Daniel reviewed mission parameters in the shuttle's database, learning about Echo Unit 7 beings, With cybernetic consciousnesses, processing tactical data at superhuman speeds, enhanced bodies, surviving hostile environments, quantum processor minds, adapting strategies in real time. They had vanished without transmitting useful intelligence. Through viewports, Silent 17 appeared as absolute darkness absorbing electromagnetic radiation across all spectrums. No cities, no atmospheric phenomena, no technological civilization, just a dead rock orbiting like a cosmic grave marker. Atmospheric analysis indicates breathable environment. The shuttle's AI reported with detached efficiency. Surface gravity acceptable. Temperature ranges compatible with standard gear. Electromagnetic interference prevents detailed analysis beyond orbital altitude. Landing zone selection was process of elimination flat equatorial region, where Echo Unit's final transmission originated. As they descended through atmosphere seeming to devour radio signals, Daniel performed equipment checks. Biosensor package monitoring life signs. Atmospheric analysis detecting chemical compositions and biological contaminants. Plasma pistol providing minimal defense. Short-range transmitter offering kilometers of communication, assuming planetary interference didn't disrupt signals. Equipment designed for someone expected to die quickly, but provide data before expiring. Landing was unremarkable controlled descent onto rocky ground. Through viewports, gray rock formations stretching to impossibly close horizons, ancient impact craters filled with concealing shadows, complete absence of life. Surface environment stable for deployment. The AI announced. Mission clock initiating. Operational time before signal degradation unknown. Recommend immediate reconnaissance protocols. Daniel stood in the airlock environmental suit, sealed reviewing objectives, find Echo Unit, determine communication disruption causes, survive long enough to transmit findings. Simple enough for even humans to understand. His reflection showed basic environmental gear and inadequate equipment, exactly what he was cannon fodder disguised as reconnaissance. Communication crackled with interference as he stepped onto the surface signal already degrading. Lieutenant Caru's voice reviewed his status with supply inventory tone. Reconnaissance asset deployed successfully. Signal degrading as expected. Estimate complete communication loss within 30 minutes. Understood, Daniel replied, knowing this was probably their last expected transmission. Beginning reconnaissance protocols. Silent 17's landscape stretched like an alien graveyard, surfaces marked by geological processes ending before Earth life emerged. But as Daniel walked toward Echo Unit's last detection coordinates, environmental sensors picked up readings not matching the brief dead world. Seismic activity following two regular patterns. Electromagnetic fluctuations suggesting technology or biological processes. Beneath it all, vibrations his acoustic sensors detected, but couldn't classify rhythmic pulses from the planet's crust, as if something vast and alive breathed beneath the surface. Behind him, the shuttle transmitted biosensor data until interference overwhelmed signals. On Battle Station Nexus, multi-dimensional intellects watched displays register complete signal loss and calculated time until declaring him officially missing. They didn't understand that Daniel had begun discovering why Silent 17 earned its name and why the Coalition's most advanced forces learned too late that some planets defended themselves in ways sophisticated technology couldn't detect or counter. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of things that hunted by sound. 37 minutes after beginning reconnaissance, Daniel's biosensor detected movement registering as organic activity despite the planet's apparent lifelessness. Subtle thermal signatures appeared and disappeared like ghosts, electromagnetic fluctuations suggesting biological processes operating on technological frequencies. Daniel paused, advancing toward Echo Unit's coordinates, environmental systems struggling to classify detections. The surface appeared unchanged. Gray rock formations, ancient craters, desolate landscape stretching beneath a sky absorbing starlight like biological membrane. But instruments told different stories, suggesting apparent emptiness was carefully constructed camouflage. His breathing, amplified by environmental systems, seemed unnaturally loud in absolute silence. Each step echoed through his suit, creating vibrations traveling through rocky ground like pond ripples. His equipment created electromagnetic signatures, power cells, processors, communication arrays, painting him clearly as beacon for anything detecting technological activity. 43 minutes after landing, Daniel's communication array registered first definitive proof he wasn't alone, a response signal mimicking his suit's electromagnetic signature with perfect accuracy, as if something learned to echo his equipment back with mechanical precision. The signal lasted exactly 2.3 seconds before cutting off, leaving communication systems electronically confused for several minutes. When interference cleared, Daniel discovered his shuttle connection completely severed, not by distance, but by something actively jamming transmission protocols using impossible techniques. Standing alone on a supposedly dead planet carrying compromised equipment, Daniel made a decision seeming like madness. He kept moving forward. Survival instincts screamed warnings his conscious mind was beginning to understand. The planet wasn't dead, it was sleeping. His presence movement technology were gradually waking something up. Echo Unit's coordinates led through increasingly surreal landscape. Rock formations followed mathematical patterns, surfaces marked with too regular geometric erosion. Ancient craters filled with shadows moving independently of light sources, shifting like liquid darkness with its own gravity. 1 hour, 17 minutes after beginning his mission, Daniel found first evidence. Echo Unit actually reached this location, advanced armor plating partially buried in rocky ground, surface scarred by energy discharges burning through alloys withstanding military-grade particle beams. The armor fragment was still warm. Atmospheric analysis detected residual energy signatures, indicating recent combat readings, unlike anything in his database. Energy patterns suggested weapons operating on unclassifiable physics principles, not alien technology, but something existing at biology and engineering intersection organic processes, achieving technological sophistication. Seismic sensors detected vibrations approaching from multiple directions, regular rhythmic pulses suggesting coordinated movement by entities large enough to register, but too camouflaged for visual detection. Vibrations accelerated, converging on his position with tactical coordination, indicating intelligence rather than random biological activity. The first creature emerged from perfect camouflage. Daniel's sensors failed to detect until it moved a form constructed from living rock surface, flowing between solid and liquid states, approaching with predatory grace. Nearly 3 meters tall body, constantly shifting amalgamation of mineral and organic components suggesting evolution, where geology and biology distinction became meaningless. Behind it, sensors detected 6 more entities approaching from different vectors movements coordinated with military unit precision. But these weren't soldiers. They were something that learned hunting by analyzing electromagnetic signatures. Something evolved to turn technology into weakness rather than advantage. Daniel's plasma pistol discharged with brief, coherent energy, illuminating landscape for hundreds of meters, revealing he was surrounded by creatures moving beneath Silent 17's surface, like living geology, perfectly integrated with natural structure until choosing to reveal themselves. The energy discharge gave away his position capabilities and equipment specifications in one defensive reflex moment. In absolute silence that followed, Daniel realized he'd made the same mistake, probably killing Echo Unit, treating Silent 17 like conventional battlefield, where superior firepower and advanced technology provided tactical advantage. But this wasn't conventional battlefield. This was a world where sound itself was enemy. Technology was liability, and survival might depend on remembering skills predating civilization by millions of years. Skills humans developed during evolutionary history, preparing them for exactly this scenario, being outnumbered, outgunned, completely out of their depth, with nothing except stubborn refusal to die when death seemed inevitable. Silent 17's creatures moved with fluid predator coordination perfected across geological ages forms, shifting between matter states, defying human understanding of biology and physics. Daniel's suit registered them as mineral structures and organic processes, combined beings evolved to exist at living tissue and planetary geology intersection. As they closed distance with mechanical precision, Daniel noticed movement patterns. His training taught him to recognize they responded to sound. Every electromagnetic pulse from equipment, every footstep vibration, every mechanical noise from his suit drew predatory attention. The creatures weren't just hunting him, they hunted the sounds he made, tracking acoustic signatures, painting him clearly as visual targeting systems. Realization came with survival, instinct, clarity. Echo Unit wasn't killed by superior force or alien technology. They were killed by their own equipment, by electronic noise, their cybernetic enhancements generated constantly by electromagnetic signatures, marking them as technological entities, where technology was perceived as prey. Daniel's plasma pistol revealed his position to every creature within kilometers, energy discharge creating acoustic signature, echoing through strange geology like dinner bell, announcing huntable arrival. But instead of panic realization, brought something military strategists would never understand: human ability to adapt tactics in real-time, improvising solutions, using resources sophisticated planning never considered. His communication equipment created constant electromagnetic noise, attempting shuttle recontact each transmission, broadcasting his location to creatures associating such signals with prey. But the same equipment marking him for death could serve as weapon if he sacrificed it strategically. Echo Unit's transmission location was marked by debris, telling their final moments story with brutal clarity. Advanced weapons lay scattered across rocky ground energy cells, drained by futile attempts engaging targets that absorbed electromagnetic discharge and converted it to biological energy. Environmental suits designed for hostile atmosphere protection had been penetrated by creatures phasing between solid and liquid states, bypassing technological defenses through biological processes operating beyond conventional physics parameters. Most telling was debris pattern, scattered in defensive formation, suggesting Echo Unit tried establishing communication relay, spending final minutes attempting to transmit tactical data about creatures systematically destroying them. They died trying to warn the Coalition about threats incomprehensible through technological analysis. Daniel's biosensor detected movement approaching from all directions as creatures began final approach forms, emerging from planetary surface like living geology taking shape. Communication equipment registered multiple electromagnetic signatures as more entities revealed themselves, numbers suggesting his single energy discharge attracted every predator within significant radius. Surrounded by forces that eliminated the Coalition's most advanced special operations team, Daniel made a decision seeming like suicide to rational strategic analysis. He activated communication equipment's emergency broadcast mode, transmitting on all available frequencies simultaneously. The electromagnetic signature created by full-power transmission was like setting off flares in absolute darkness, beacon announcing his position to everything within hundreds of kilometers, marking him as the most attractive planet target. Creatures responded immediately approach, shifting from cautious stalking to coordinated assault, recognizing opportunities to destroy completely vulnerable technological entities. But Daniel wasn't making himself vulnerable. He was making himself bait. As creatures closed within 50 meters, moving with predatory confidence toward perceived helpless technological prey, Daniel did something no AI-enhanced soldier would consider. He manually overloaded communication equipment, power cells creating cascading failure, destroying the entire system in approximately 90 seconds. Then, he threw the entire communication package toward the largest creature concentration and began moving oppositely as quietly as human physiology permitted. Communication equipment continued broadcasting electromagnetic noise, sailing through thin atmosphere systems, cycling through every available frequency in mechanical screams, drawing every creature within detection range attention. Entities converged on signal sources with single-minded predatory focus, learning such signatures always marked prey locations. 97 seconds later, power cells reached critical overload and communication packages exploded, with sufficient force illuminating landscape for several kilometers, destruction creating acoustic and electromagnetic chaos, confusing every sensor system within range, including biological sensors, creatures used for hunting. In confusion that followed, Daniel began making his way toward coordinates where intelligence reports suggested additional Coalition equipment might be located, moving with careful precision. Understanding survival depended on remaining invisible to senses operating beyond human understanding. Behind him, creatures systematically investigated craters, where his communication equipment self-destructed confusion, evident in movement patterns, suggesting they'd never encountered prey, sacrificing primary survival tools as tactical diversions. For the first time since arriving on Silent 17, Daniel was alone undetected, and beginning to understand something Echo Unit died too quickly to learn. Sometimes the winning move looked like surrender. Destroying communication equipment bought Daniel 6 hours of invisibility on a planet where electromagnetic silence meant survival, but cut his last connection to Coalition forces, expecting regular mission status reports. On Battle Station Nexus, Lieutenant Carew was updating his file with casualty probability assessments approaching statistical certainty, treating his mission as data-gathering exercise reaching expected conclusion. But Daniel was alive, beginning to understand Silence-17 in ways technological analysis could never reveal. Moving through strange landscape without active equipment, electromagnetic signatures, he began perceiving details his suit's sensors had been too noisy to detect subtle ground temperature variations indicating underground activity, erosion patterns suggesting deliberate entity movement phasing between solid and liquid states, and most importantly, complex acoustic environment existing beneath apparent silence. Sound-hunting creatures learned communicating through vibrations, traveling through planetary geological structure rather than atmospheric transmission, creating seismic signal networks functioning as biological internet spanning the entire world. By moving carefully and remaining electronically quiet, Daniel could detect these communications without triggering defensive responses that killed Echo Unit. What he discovered challenged everything the Coalition understood about hostile alien intelligence. The creatures weren't mindless predators. They were sophisticated collective consciousness evolved to defend their world against technological intrusion. Their Coalition force attacks weren't random biological responses, but coordinated defensive strategies designed neutralizing specific threat categories. They had analyzed Echo Unit's capabilities, developed equipment countermeasures, and eliminated them with tactical precision, rivaling Coalition military doctrine. But defensive strategies contained fundamental assumptions proving incorrect. They assumed all technologically capable species would behave according to predictable patterns, that beings with advanced equipment would rely on that equipment, even when such reliance became tactically disadvantageous. They'd never encountered species that would sacrifice technology for tactical advantage, that would voluntarily become primitive to achieve strategic objectives sophisticated analysis couldn't accomplish. Daniel spent hours mapping creature communication networks by tracking seismic vibrations through environmental suit souls, gradually building understanding of coordination patterns and defensive strategies. The process required patience and observational skills. No enhancement system could replicate careful attention to detail humans developed through millions of predator-prey relationship years, where survival depended on reading environmental cues undetectable through technological analysis. The revelation was simple enough for any human to understand, but profound enough to change the galactic war course. Creatures weren't trying to kill intruders. They were trying to silence them. Every attack pattern, defensive strategy, coordinated response was designed eliminating electromagnetic noise sources disrupting their communication network. From their perspective, technological entities weren't invaders. They were audiovisual pollution interfering with biological processes evolved over geological timescales. They attacked Coalition forces not from aggression, but from the same instinct driving humans to eliminate toxic contamination sources. But this understanding raised possibilities. No strategic AI considered what if pollution sources could be controlled rather than eliminated? What if technological entities could learn operating within planetary acoustic environments rather than disrupting them? Daniel began experimenting with movement patterns matching detected seismic rhythms, adjusting footfalls to harmonize with creature communication frequencies rather than interfering with them. The effect was immediate, and dramatic entities tracking his position through acoustic analysis began registering him as part of the planet's natural soundscape rather than technological intrusion. Within 2 hours, Daniel was moving through terrain Coalition's most advanced reconnaissance teams couldn't penetrate, accompanied by creatures evolved to kill anything making unauthorized noise. They tracked his movement through seismic sensors, but classified him as natural phenomenon rather than threat requiring elimination. He had become invisible by learning to speak their language. Echo Unit's final position contained equipment. Daniel's new understanding suggested could be salvaged and repurposed, but only if approached with techniques technological analysis would never consider. Instead of attempting reactivating systems immediately attracting hostile attention, he began selectively harvesting components functioning without creating electromagnetic signatures. As Daniel worked, he became aware several creatures were observing his activities with what could only be described as curiosity. They'd never encountered technological entities operating within their acoustic environment, demonstrating understanding of their communication protocols behaving predictably enough to be classified as non-threatening. For the first time in planetary history, they witnessed technology enhancing rather than disrupting biological processes. Data he began collecting would have been impossible obtaining through conventional reconnaissance methods. Detailed analysis of creature social organization, technological capabilities, defensive strategies, and most importantly, potential for cooperative rather than hostile interaction with coalition forces. But perhaps most significant was what Daniel began understanding about his own species' unique position in galactic civilization. Humans were the only technologically capable beings who could voluntarily abandon technology when tactical situations required it, who could revert to survival strategies predating mechanical tools and electronic systems. Back on Battle Station Nexus, Lieutenant Carew was preparing casualty reports officially declaring Daniel missing in action strategic calculations unable to account for possibilities existing beyond technological parameters. But sensors were about to detect something forcing the Coalition to reconsider everything they believed about human capabilities in hostile environments. A transmission was incoming from Silence 17, not from Daniel's communication equipment, which had been destroyed, but from salvaged components broadcasting tactical intelligence about cooperative protocols with hostile alien intelligence. Intelligence that could only have been gathered by someone who learned surviving by becoming something other than a technological entity. The transmission reaching Battle Station Nexus, 72 hours after Daniel's communication blackout, carried data challenging fundamental assumptions about technological superiority and biological intelligence. The signal was improvised engineering masterpiece, salvaged Echo Unit components configured using power sources. Silent 17's creatures learned to ignore as natural electromagnetic environment. But transmission content was far more revolutionary than technical specifications. Coalition Command, this is Private Daniel Owens' mission designation, Silent 17 Reconnaissance. The message began transmitted through salvaged equipment that shouldn't have reached orbital communication arrays. I am alive and operational with tactical intelligence requiring immediate strategic review. In Battle Station, Nexus, Strategic Command Chamber beings whose combined intellects represented galactic military analysis, Pinnacle stared at displays showing impossible data, detailed biological surveys of Silent 17's indigenous population, comprehensive tactical assessments of defensive capabilities, and most significantly, preliminary protocols for cooperative engagement with hostile alien intelligence. Signal authentication confirmed. Alan X7 reported quantum processors struggling to reconcile transmission origin with statistical models declaring Daniel's survival mathematically impossible. However, content suggests capabilities exceeding mission parameters by several orders of magnitude. Captain Sharv's 4 eyes tracked tactical data with growing comprehension and mounting disbelief. Intelligence contained in Daniel's transmission represented detailed analysis. Specialized xenobiology teams would require months to compile. Gathered through observation techniques, Coalition's most advanced sensor systems couldn't replicate. He's established communication protocols with indigenous population. Lieutenant Carew reported massive Gurnon frame shifting with excitement or concern. Entities that eliminated Echo Unit are providing active cooperation for intelligence-gathering operations. Tactical implications were staggering. Silent 17 wasn't just a dead world containing hostile life forms. It was a sophisticated defensive system operated by collective intelligence protecting itself against technological intrusion for centuries. Creatures systematically eliminating every Coalition reconnaissance mission weren't mindless predators, but strategic defenders developing countermeasures for every advanced military technology form. But Daniel's transmission suggested something no strategic AI considered possible they could be negotiated with. Analysis of indigenous communication methods indicates biological rather than technological basis. Daniel's voice continued through static-filled transmission. Entities respond to acoustic harmony rather than electromagnetic signatures. Coalition forces register as audiovisual pollution rather than invasion threats. Recommend immediate revision of engagement protocols. Implications rippled through command structure like weapons discharge shockwaves. Every military doctrine, strategic assessment, tactical planning model had been based on assumptions that alien intelligence would respond according to patterns advanced artificial intelligence could analyze and predict. The possibility that some intelligence forms operated according to principles that couldn't be reduced to algorithmic analysis had been dismissed as statistically irrelevant. But here was proof. Statistical models could be catastrophically wrong. Request permission to establish formal diplomatic contact. Daniel continued, and words carried implications shattering conventional understanding of how interspecies relations were supposed to function. Indigenous population demonstrates technological capabilities operating on biological rather than mechanical principles. Potential for cooperative military alliance exists if coalition forces can adapt operational parameters to minimize acoustic disruption. Captain Sharv found himself confronting logical paradox. No amount of advanced education prepared him to handle a human private with minimal technological support had accomplished diplomatic breakthrough that eluded coalition's most sophisticated xenological specialists. The being they deployed as expendable reconnaissance had become their most successful first contact specialist. Tactical assessment indicates indigenous defensive capabilities exceed current coalition countermeasures. Transmission continued with relentless precision. Entities can phase between solid and liquid states, allowing penetration of conventional defenses. They process acoustic information through geological mediums, providing planetary-scale surveillance capabilities. Energy weapons register as nutritional sources. Rather than threats, they absorb electromagnetic discharge and convert it to biological energy. Words painted military futility picture, making every advanced weapon system in coalition arsenal effectively useless. Beings that could turn energy weapons into food sources that could phase through physical barriers that possessed surveillance capabilities. Spanning entire worlds represented threats no amount of technological sophistication could counter through conventional means. But Daniel's intelligence suggested these same beings could become allies if approached through protocols respecting their biological rather than technological nature. Recommend immediate deployment of human specialist teams using modified operational procedures. Daniel concluded. Indigenous population responds positively to entities demonstrating acoustic discipline and environmental integration. Coalition forces can establish cooperative relationships if willing to adapt tactics to biological rather than technological parameters. Transmission ended, leaving Strategic Command Chamber in silence, carrying revolutionary possibility weight. Every being present understood they witnessed fundamental shift in how galactic military doctrine would need to evolve recognition that some intelligence forms couldn't be defeated through superior technology, but could potentially be allied with through superior adaptability. Xenobiology assessment confirms indigenous population represents previously unknown form of collective consciousness. Dr. Yinara Thess reported ethereal form flickering with analytical processes spanning multiple dimensions. However, human operative appears to have established communication methods our most advanced systems cannot replicate. The unspoken question understood by every strategic mind present was simple but profound. If one human with minimal equipment could accomplish what Coalition's most advanced forces failed to achieve, what did that suggest about human potential in scenarios requiring adaptation rather than superiority? Alan X7's response carried computational uncertainty that hadn't existed in its programming until this moment. Analysis indicates human cognitive flexibility exceeds parameters for most galactic species. Recommendation: immediate strategic reassessment of human capabilities in specialized operational environments. Captain Sharv stared at tactical displays showing Silent 17 transformed from hostile dead world into potential military asset, all through efforts of being his command structure had classified as expendable cannon fodder. For the first time in his military career, he found himself questioning whether advanced intelligence was necessarily superior to adaptive intelligence, and whether Coalition had been systematically underestimating the species that might possess the greatest military potential of all. 6 months after Private Daniel Owens established first contact with Silent 17's collective consciousness, the Galactic Coalition Strategic Academy unveiled its most revolutionary military curriculum edition, the Human Adaptability Protocol, a comprehensive study of how biological flexibility could achieve tactical objectives that technological superiority couldn't accomplish. The transformation began with Daniel's second transmission from Silent 17, broadcast 3 days after his initial intelligence report using communication arrays representing unprecedented biological technological cooperation. indigenous creatures had learned interfacing their geological communication network with salvaged coalition equipment, creating hybrid systems operating according to principles no existing science could adequately explain. Coalition Command. This is Owens reporting comprehensive intelligence update. That second transmission began words carrying implications redefining humanity's role in galactic civilization. Indigenous population has provided detailed tactical assessment of regional threat matrix. Entities classify coalition forces as technologically advanced but strategically limited due to dependence on electromagnetic systems, registering as environmental disruption. Following data painted military reality picture, shattering comfortable technological supremacy assumptions. Silent 17's creatures weren't isolated planetary defenders, they were part of collective intelligence network, spanning 17 star systems, biological civilization observing coalition military activities for centuries, while remaining completely invisible to technological detection methods. They had tactical intelligence about every major coalition military installation, detailed weapons capability assessments, comprehensive strategic analysis of coalition defensive doctrine, and most significantly, they'd been sharing this information with other biological collective intelligences throughout the sector. The coalition had been fighting a war against enemies possessing complete intelligence about their capabilities, while remaining entirely ignorant of their opponent's existence. But Daniel's transmissions revealed something even more significant. Biological collectives weren't interested in conquest or destruction. They were defensive networks evolved protecting their worlds against technological intrusion, but willing to establish cooperative relationships with species, demonstrating acoustic discipline and environmental integration. Species that could adapt to biological, rather than technological operational parameters. Species like humans. Recommendation: immediate revision of strategic doctrine. Daniel's transmission continued. Coalition forces achieve maximum tactical effectiveness when human personnel serve as primary interface with biological intelligence networks. Indigenous populations respond positively to beings demonstrating adaptive rather than technological problem-solving capabilities. Words fell like weapons discharges through strategic command chamber, each implication more revolutionary than the last. Not only were humans uniquely qualified for operations requiring cooperation with biological intelligence, but their presence could transform hostile environments into strategic assets through diplomatic rather than military conquest. Within weeks, human personnel were being reassigned to specialized units designed establishing contact with biological intelligence networks throughout the sector. Results exceeded every strategic projection. Worlds considered permanently hostile became cooperative intelligence sources. Species resisting coalition contact for centuries began sharing tactical data about mutual enemies. And most importantly, galactic war balance of power shifted toward coalition through alliance rather than superior firepower. Military doctrine transformation required fundamental changes in how intelligence was measured and valued. Traditional metrics favoring processing speed and data analysis capabilities were supplemented by assessments of adaptive flexibility and biological integration potential. Suddenly, species considered least technologically sophisticated were being recognized as possessing unique strategic value that couldn't be replicated through artificial enhancement. Captain Sharv, who originally deployed Daniel as expendable reconnaissance, found himself serving as military liaison to human specialist teams, achieving diplomatic breakthroughs with biological intelligences throughout the sector. His strategic worldview had been transformed by recognition that some intelligence forms couldn't be understood through technological analysis, but could be engaged through methods predating civilizational development by millions of years. Human approach to biological intelligence contact has achieved success rates exceeding our most optimistic projections. He reported to Coalition High Command 6 months after Daniel's initial mission. Entities resisting contact with technologically enhanced species demonstrate consistent cooperation with human personnel using adaptive protocol methods. Lieutenant Carew, whose strategic calculations originally classified human personnel as marginally useful cannon fodder, submitted research proposals for comprehensive studies of human cognitive flexibility and its applications in hostile environment operations. Her analysis suggested humans possess survival capabilities systematically undervalued by species dependent on technological enhancement for basic functionality. Human personnel demonstrate unique ability to voluntarily abandon technological advantage when tactical situations require biological integration. Her reports concluded, this adaptive flexibility represents strategic capability that cannot be replicated through artificial enhancement or genetic modification. But perhaps most significant change was institutional rather than tactical. Coalition Strategic Academy established the Daniel Owens Center for Biological Intelligence Studies research facility, dedicated to understanding how technological species could learn cooperating with intelligence forms, operating according to biological rather than mechanical principles. The center's first director was Dr. Sarah Chen, human xenobiologist, whose work had been considered theoretical speculation until Daniel's success demonstrated biological intelligence networks were not only real, but potentially crucial to coalition strategic objectives. Under her guidance, the center became a nexus for developing protocols, allowing technologically advanced species to interface with biological collective intelligences throughout the galaxy. Traditional strategic doctrine assumes superior technology provides inherent tactical advantage. Dr. Chen explained to her first class of interspecies military specialists. But biological intelligence networks operate according to principles rendering technological superiority irrelevant or even counterproductive. Success in biological integration requires adaptation rather than advancement, flexibility rather than processing power, and most importantly, willingness to abandon technological dependence when circumstances require biological solutions. Implications rippled through galactic civilization, like shock waves from stellar explosion. Species spending centuries developing ever more sophisticated technological systems began incorporating human personnel into strategic planning processes, recognizing some tactical objectives could only be achieved through capabilities no amount of artificial enhancement could provide, but transformation went deeper than military applications. Recognition that biological intelligence networks possessed strategic capabilities, technological analysis couldn't detect forced fundamental reassessment of how intelligence itself was defined and measured. The galaxy had been structured around assumptions that technological sophistication represented evolutionary advancement, but Daniel's success suggested the most advanced species might be those retaining flexibility to operate without technological dependence when circumstances required it. At this revolutionary change center in galactic civilization stood Private Daniel Dusty Owens, who had accomplished something no strategic AI considered possible. He had proven sometimes the most primitive approach was the most effective solution. The plaque installed outside the Daniel Owens Center bore simple inscription capturing humanity's contribution essence to galactic military doctrine. When advanced technology fails, adaptive intelligence prevails. The weakest species became the strongest weapon not through superior firepower, but through superior flexibility. The inscription was carved in 17 different languages, but the message was universal. In a galaxy that had forgotten biological intelligence value, humans had remembered that the most sophisticated technology was only as effective as the being who operated it, and sometimes the best operator was the one who could choose not to use technology at all. Daniel himself requested reassignment to permanent station on Silent 17, where he served as primary liaison to collective intelligence network that had become Coalition's most valuable strategic asset. His reports transmitted through hybrid biological-technological communication systems provided tactical intelligence shaping military operations throughout the sector. But more importantly, his example inspired a generation of human specialists who understood their species' greatest strength wasn't technological capability, but adaptive flexibility, the ability to succeed in environments where success seemed impossible, using methods sophisticated analysis would never consider. In official report margins, historians noted that the Galactic War's turning point hadn't come through superior firepower or strategic brilliance, but through recognition that some problems could only be solved by beings too stubborn to accept that solutions were impossible. The Coalition learned humans possessed something no artificial intelligence could replicate: the ability to adapt, survive, and succeed when every logical analysis suggested they should fail. And in military history's deepest archives, sealed away from casual access but preserved for future generations, was Daniel's first transmission from Silent 17, the message that changed everything by proving sometimes the most important tactical advantage was willingness to sacrifice every advantage you thought you had. This story proves something that SciFi Stories have always known: that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology, but our refusal to stay defeated. Private Owens showed that when everything else fails, sometimes the winning move is the one nobody expects. If this tale of underdog triumph moved you, if it reminded you that true strength comes from adaptability rather than advancement, then this story deserves to be shared. Hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of human determination against impossible odds, and let us know in the comments, what's the most impossible situation you've adapted your way out of? Because in a universe that's always underestimating us, we need to remember that our greatest victories come not from proving we're superior, but from proving we're too stubborn to quit.